It's a pleasure to have you here at Martin Luther King Jr. Academic Academy Middle School for this very important morning and this very important celebration. My name is Richard Carranza. I serve as Superintendent of Schools here in San Francisco in the San Francisco Unified School District. Before I share a few words and introduce the other folks on the program, I'd like to take a minute or two to thank and acknowledge some very important individuals that are here with us this morning. If I miss someone, which I invariably probably will, I want to thank you all. A general thank you for being here today. I think today will be one of those dates that we will mark in our calendars as a seminal changing point in public education in San Francisco moving forward. So before I go any further, I'd like to recognize our members, our elected commissioners of the Board of Education, Commissioner Jill Wins, who is here with us this morning. I'd also like to recognize Commissioner Matt Haney, who is here with us. Thank you. And playing a dual role, not only a commissioner on the Board of Education, but also the mayor's educational advisor, Commissioner Hydra Mendoza McDonald, who is here with us. The heroes in my mind, absolutely the folks that lead the work affecting lives each and every day. Our entire middle school principal cadre is here. So could you stand for 1 minute so we can applaud you? Thank you. Thank you for being here. And obviously, we want to thank our principal here at Martin Luther King Middle School, Natalie Eberhardt, for opening her doors to us. I'd like to recognize as well our Assistant Superintendent for Middle Schools, Ms. Jeannie Pond. Our Director of Middle Schools, Mr. Richard Kirchie. And you may have heard a word or two about the future and where we're going to go. So also a preview of coming attractions is our Assistant Superintendent that supervises our K-8 schools, Ms. Letty Salinas, is here with us as well. So thank you for being here. And then, of course, our absolute, and I will introduce him a little bit later in the program, but our absolutely visionary and wonderful leader of the city and county of San Francisco, our mayor, Mayor Ed Lee. Thank you for being here, Mr. Mayor. And a true civic visionary and a great citizen of San Francisco, and also our partner, Mr. Mark Benioff. Thank you for being here, Mr. Benioff. I'd also like to recognize two corporate partners that are here with us today. From Zynga, Mr. Ken Weber, the Executive Director at Zynga, who is also partnering with us. Ken, thank you for being here. From Autodesk, Mr. Carl Bass. I understand he couldn't be here, but his entire team is here. So Autodesk, are you here? Yes, thank you. Thank you for being here. Just a couple more introductions, if you will. Many of these conversations have been ongoing conversations, but I personally remember a dinner that I happened to attend a little more than a year ago in her home, and we started talking about some of these possibilities and dreaming back then with the mayor, and I think the mayor will probably say more about this in his remarks, but I also want to recognize Susan Corrett, who is here from the Corrett Foundation. Thank you for allowing us to dream. And then a person who we've been working hand in hand, hand in glove, you choose the analogy, but has been absolutely phenomenal in helping us to really develop a true partnership, and that is Susan DiBianca with the Salesforce Foundation. Thank you, Suzanne. We appreciate your help. And then last but not least, one person is here, one is not, but two members of the district staff who have been on the ground, both visionary and also making all of the trains run on time. And our executive, actually she's our special assistant to the chief of staff, Bajay Tiara, who is leading up this initiative for us. Bajay's back. And then our district chief of staff, who actually couldn't be here today, is on the East Coast planning her daughter's wedding, but she is here in spirit. Has been texting me all morning on how excited she is, and that is Laura Moran. So Laura, wherever you are, thank you. So why are we here today, and why are we at a middle school to talk about this exciting partnership? Well, you know, ladies and gentlemen, when you look at who we are in San Francisco, and as a former history teacher, I will just use this example. We are in the technological Mesopotamia of the world. Now think about that for a minute. The innovative things that happen in technology, the innovative things that happen in any part of the STEM idea, science, technology, engineering, or math, you can draw a line back to the Bay Area, San Francisco in this area. So it only makes sense then that the public schools of San Francisco should reflect that innovation. They should reflect that sense of urgency for engaging with the 21st century curriculum, engaging and preparing our students for, quite frankly, careers and jobs that don't yet exist. So how do we do that within the paradigm of a public educational institution? And we know that we don't charge for our services. There's nothing that we sell as public schools. So we really, really are dependent upon, and actually we're excited to be partnering with those civic-minded, visionary individuals in our community that have a foot very solidly planted in the innovation of the future, but also have a very deep sense of what will it take to ensure that all residents of San Francisco are prepared to jump into that 21st century vision. So we're very successful. We're very proud of the successful partnership that we've been able to establish with the three-legged stool. And the three-legged stool, if you will, are public educational institutions like San Francisco Unified School District, elected officials like the mayor of the city and county of San Francisco, Mayor Lee, and private corporate innovation, technology, civic-minded individuals like Mark Benioff and Salesforce. When you bring those three forces together in a synergistic way, you can create wonderful things for the future of our city and the future of our children in the city. So what we're here today to do is to celebrate the first step in moving towards that kind of a relationship with the three-legged partners, the partners on this stool saying, we're going to chart a course into the future so that every student in San Francisco is prepared to engage in a 21st century curriculum, but more importantly, is prepared to be a contributing member of our city when they leave our school system. And we're not going to wait for graduation for that to happen. We're going to start somewhere, and where we've decided to start is very squarely where the magic happens, in the middle schools. So we want to thank you for that partnership. I will say that the Board of Education in San Francisco Unified School District has been absolutely unequivocal, and they've been very clear that our goal is to educate every single student, regardless of who they are, regardless of where they come from, regardless of what color, race, creed, or sexual orientation they happen to be from. We're going to educate every single student with an eye through equity, so that we take them where they come when they walk through our door, but when they leave our doors, they're extraordinarily equipped to engage in this new vision for what the world is going to be. This partnership is going to help us do that. Is going to help ensure that the technological divide that exists will not exist in our schools. That the divide that exists in opportunity does not exist when a student walks into our schools. That students will be able to use and identify and be able to apply and think critically and work in teams and think outside the box. That's exactly what this is going to help us do. So we want to thank you for that partnership. And the one last example that I would like to share before I introduce the mayor is folks have asked me, you know, Mr. Superintendent, you know, this is just about devices, right? And wireless. And, you know, devices, they're going to be outdated in a few months. And, you know, the wireless, we're probably going to do something differently in a few months. So let me be very, very clear. This is not about devices. And I think we would miss the point if we're talking about iPads or any other device or even software. What we're talking about here is changing the way students engage with knowledge. So let me give you an example. Can you imagine the student that is studying their history and that they take a scene from history, and students are allowed to take a position assuming the identity of one of those historical figures. But then instead of just writing about that historical figure, they get to make an iMovie about that particular scene. And then they get to change the outcome. So what would have happened if that particular debate had gone another way? What would have happened if that particular battle had ended up another way? And then take that to fruition and create a movie about it. And then organize with the opposing side. And then figure out how that debate would have gone. And then write up what the historical account would have been. And how would that have influenced the economy and the political environment and the scientific developments that stemmed from. You can go on and on. That's the power of harnessing technology. That's the power of the two students as I walked into the school today saying, Mr. Carranza, can I interview you? And they take a picture of me, then they videotape me on their iPad, and they're taking notes, and they're going to create a blog about that, about this event. That's real-time power that our students not only should have, but need to have in a 21st century environment. So this partnership is providing us the opportunity to engage our students not with the reality of today, but with the vision of tomorrow. That's what this does. It builds a bridge to tomorrow. So to all of our partners, I couldn't thank you enough for this opportunity. On behalf of the 56,000 students and on behalf of the 8,000 individuals who touch kids in some way, shape, or form around learning every day in our schools, this is huge. This is the flag that we've planted that says not only are we the technological, innovative Mesopotamia of the world, we're going to make sure that our schools are the technological, innovative.
And there's some innovation. That's our classy time. So we're going to have music for about 3 minutes. So sorry about that.
It was perfectly timed, right? Right at the crescendo. That's okay. Please enjoy this musical interlude.
I'd ask you to dance, but I'm not a very good dancer.
I'm not either. I will tell you, it's nothing like the old passing period bells of yesteryear, correct? Okay. Okay. I think as Principal Eberhardt mentioned, this allows students to transition from one class to the other, thinking about and calming their brains. And it sure allowed me to do that. And I reflected upon the fact that I forgot to introduce two very important folks, and I apologize, but I'd like to do that before I introduce the mayor. One is our Chief of Information Technology, who's been great about making sure that we could actually implement the technology in all of our middle schools, and that's Matt Kinsey, who is here with us. Thank you, Matt. And his wonderful team. You will also see lots of folks wearing these gray shirts that say Salesforce Foundation. They are our Salesforce Foundation volunteers. These are Salesforce employees that are here to put in some sweat equity, sit next to kids and work with students, and more importantly, they are absolute examples to our students of what technology looks like. They look like them, right? And so they're great examples. So we want to thank you for being here today as well. Thank you. Last but certainly not least, we've partnered in a very deep way with SF City and really tried to work with all of our technology innovators in the city and county of San Francisco around this vision of what will learning look like in the 21st century for our children. And we couldn't have done this without the incredible Herculean work and effort and partnership of Mr. Ron Conway, who is also here with us. So Ron, thank you for all your partnership. So with that, ladies and gentlemen, it gives me great honor to be able to introduce to you probably the most visionary mayor anywhere in America. This is someone who actually means what he says and says what he means. And this is a testament to that vision. In a city where we do not have mayoral control of our schools, we have a mayor that is so committed to the fabric of our educational system and sees our educational system as part of the fabric of the citizenry in San Francisco. You cannot have a world-class city without having a world-class educational system, and he sees that as a true partnership with us. I would do anything for him, and obviously today is an example of he will do anything for us in the district. We'll work together, but it gives me great honor to introduce the mayor of the city and county of San Francisco, Mayor Ed Lee.
Thank you very much, and good morning, everyone. I'll speak quickly before the next interlude. Well, let me begin by thanking Richard Carranza for your expert leadership, the school board, the administration. On occasion, in my first year, I've had a number of dinner meetings with people, and inevitably they will ask me the question, what are you thinking about? What's your passion these days? What are things that you have to get done? And in my first year, what was been on my mind for quite some time were a lot of different problems. And in the backdrop, our school district had been the victims of so many cuts in years past, disinvestment, if you will, from the state, and that was already resurging with Governor Brown's leadership. But we were looking at statistics. And this began that conversation with Ron Conway and others, and Susan Krett invited us to her house one night and said, why don't we talk about that amongst friends? You have a chance to talk about it. And so Richard and I reviewed with Hydra and others the statistics that were going on in our city, and we had already gotten one big one, which was the improvements of our public schools being one of the #1 improvements the last year in all of public schools in the state of California. So to begin to show some promise of all the years that we had the rainy day fund in the city and our investment with the school district, it was beginning to really pay off. And then we said, well, okay, that's the big one. What's really going on behind that? And we discovered when we looked at all the schools, we saw the big drop-off, and it was in the middle schools. That's where the truancy starts and gets embedded. That's where the resources were very much lacking. Even though we had, as a city, tried very hard, and I think very successfully, the elementary schools and the high schools were getting some great attention. And, College Track, who's here today, knows that we've partnered with them on the high schools, and they are there, our partners in school innovation. They have been there for our school district, and we're partnering there. Teach for America, who's also here today, they were partnering to really boost up this whole effort. But we saw the middle schools being the big challenge. And so I asked Hydra to give me the names of all of the middle school principals. And she did that. They said, let's meet with them. Let's have this first little lunch and just get together and just talk. With that, we also were able, for that first dinner meeting, we had our first donation that Susan Corrett and Ron Conway had personally given of their own resources to say, well, before you talk about this large system, show us what you can do with maybe one school. And it was this Martin Luther King School that the initial funds were invested in to give technology support, training support, and some resources. So we began already to flourish in our minds what we could do with all the middle schools, given the statistics of the drop-offs and the truancy and all the other issues. But what transpired with our initial meeting was I met 12 principals who were very passionate about not only their sites, but their families that they were encountered, the issues that they have, and each of them developed a whole list of things that they kind of wished. If resources were not a limit, what could they do to really create a partnership with the city, with private enterprises, to change around the equity issues that they were challenged with. So that agenda was created at that first meeting, but what I did discover was that we had 12 extremely enthusiastic principals who were passionate about teaching, wanted the best that we could get for the schools, and they were not afraid to step out of the box and suggest to Richard and the school board that this was not about being taken over by anybody. This is not about going in a completely different direction. It was about a promise that we made a long time ago in the city that we would invest in public education and do it the right way in collaboration with everybody to come up with the best ideas. Well then, we sat down at that very same meeting with Suzanne and the Salesforce folks, and we began that conversation. And I want to say that this is just the beginning. We have found great partners in Salesforce Foundation. Certainly Mark and Lynn Benioff both have a passion for the city that has been here for at least 3 generations, and we see it in all the things that they do. But in particular, we were able to have a conversation that I hadn't had in a long, long time. The last time I was ever asked, Mr. Lee, what do you really want to do? I think it was in college when the professor asked me, what do I really want to do? And of course, he was asking about my life expectancies. But I hadn't been asked that question since college. And Mr. Benioff has found the occasion to ask me that at a time when I think the city has got a lot of people, a lot of entities who want it to be the most successful city and region in the whole world, including our own teachers that want to see that happen and be part of it. And this is a question that will be with me for my entire years of being at the helm of being mayor of the city, but one that I'm extremely happy to continue answering and refining as we go forth. And so today, I am proud to announce that this partnership with our school district, our unified school district, emanating from where I just described, with Mr. Benioff and the Salesforce Foundation, and with a number of technology companies, initial investment of $2.7 million for the middle schools to begin with, that will provide them with the equity challenge gap fill that Superintendent Carranza had described. But it's much, much more than that. If you look at the whole agenda that these principals gave me, you'll know they want ultimately to invest in people. And this is the most important thing. because I will say time and time again, and I know there are some articles that appear to say, "Oh, gosh, you're going to get a lot of money." It's not so much about an amount of money that we get. It really is whether we're ready to receive it and honor those resources in a way in which the results will go and multiply 10 to 12-fold. That's the most important part. And I will have to say that as glad as I am to have met and will continue to work with these 12 principals, they're trouble causers. Because what they've done is invite the other 7 principals of other K through 8 middle schools to come at me, but they've also, I think, created the buzz that we've always wanted to do with every principal and every teacher of the San Francisco Unified School District, and that is about the excitement of being invested in for our kids. That's what it really means. And so we picked a partner with United Way of the Bay Area to be our fiscal sponsor to help us handle this money. And United Way is going to be a wonderful partner. They helped me create in fact, they helped me find this summer 6,200 summer jobs with all of the private entities that they work with in city government. And so the larger picture is about public and private partnerships with our school district, with our city, with successful companies like Salesforce, and I think as importantly, the companies are beginning, through Mark's leadership, of exhibiting their philanthropic goals. What kind of society do they want to be a part of and help lead? This is a question for every technology company, and I'm very glad to see Autodesk and Zynga here today, because with them, and you'll notice, Autodesk begins with an A and Zynga with a Z. And that's just the beginning, because every tech company that has a letter in their name is going to be invited, A through Z, to be a partner with us on this journey of not only improving, of transforming our education system that has been, I think, described as struggling in the past with a lot of different barriers, and opening up to our effort to involve a larger picture of what our residents and what their families really want to do in the great city of San Francisco. And how do we attract the families to stay here? You know, I go to technology visits with companies every Tuesday, Tech Tour Tuesdays. Inevitably, I have a chance to meet with 30 or 40 employees of these companies. And many of them, as Ron knows for a fact, their IPOs haven't come in. They won't be coming in for a while. And many of them are like every other family city. They want to be here. They want to work in good jobs. But the first thing out of their mouth is, how are we doing with the schools? Because that's the biggest sign of whether or not they want to invest in the city. And I often say the best investment that one can ever make in this city is to start a family or to create that family here, because that means that you've got faith in the way we've treated our schools, public safety, the business climate, and the public-private partnerships that we have. This is important. In addition, the technology gap that Salesforce Foundation is helping us today with over $1.7 million in the Apple iPads and the technology goes with it, also comes with it the training of the teachers and the administrators. And that's similar to what both Autodesk and Zynga are also offering. It isn't just the money, it's about the training that goes with it, the support mechanisms that go with it, so that when we roll this out, people are prepared to receive a gift. You know, it's one thing to announce a gift, but it's really the best thing is to be able to receive it with the highest level of responsibility and care that it deserves. And this is what we want to do, because I know that Mr. Benioff will be a partner for the long run. He never does anything on a one-gift basis. He invests. He and Ron have taught me about what investment is all about. It is long-term until your goal of what you define as success is accomplished. And I want to see success in every kid, in every family, in every school in the city. So I want to thank Mark and Salesforce Foundation for implementing what I think Mark will speak to in a few minutes, their one-on-one philosophy. It's a donation of people and technology and resources. And this being, I think, the single largest financial single-year donation in the school year history, it's appropriate to make this announcement here. But they went one step further. And this is what technology companies try to do, and I think that's why it's a joy to work with them. And I know he carried forth this concept to me in his ask about what we really want to do in education. Mark, when he asked me that, he says, well, I'll go one step before you even fulfill your year. I'll do something that I think will trigger, and that is the additional $1.2 million, $100,000 to each principal for their Principals Innovation Fund, challenging the principals to think outside the box. What do you need? What would you want to envision if you had some resources behind it? And I did not dictate at all to any of the things that the principals would come up with, except to suggest that this is your opportunity to really be creative. This is what you wanted to do. This is why you came to San Francisco to work. It wasn't to be just the discipliner in the classroom. It was about creating and inventing and being part of the San Francisco fabric of what we do. And Mr. Benioff and the Salesforce Foundation has given us this opportunity with this Innovation Leadership Fund, because I think it's allowed everybody to think way outside the box and to work with me about the final question that Benioff has asked me, and that is, when we're through dealing with the equity issues, and there's always challenges there, but when we're through with that, when we've gotten comfortable with technology, the question will be, nirvana, what is it that you really want to do with education in San Francisco? And I'm so happy to entertain that question along with a large group of partners through SF City, Autodesk, Zynga, of course, and Salesforce. But it's something that's going to be on my mind very solidly. We've already begun those discussions with the principals. We're having a lot of outside meetings to demonstrate that if resources were not a barrier, what do we want our school district to really accomplish with the mayor and with the business community? That's a big question, and we're already creating the groundwork for that. Well, that'll make me more excited about all of the tribulations of shutdowns, of strikes, things that would usually drag a mayor down to deeps of depression. But to signal that we have great partners in our business community that demonstrate their love for our city, and this is the appropriate way to introduce a good friend, the CEO of Salesforce, of course, and that's Mr. Mark Benioff.
Well, we are so lucky to have such a great mayor here in San Francisco, aren't we? And what the mayor said is absolutely true. We live in a nirvana here. We are so blessed to be in this amazing city. It's a relatively small city, 7 by 7 miles, but so full of so many rich resources, which are well represented by all the people here. And you don't have to go any farther than outside this beautiful building to see our gorgeous Indian summer day and all the beautiful scenery, and we're so blessed to live in this amazing city. Now, I'm part of the industry, which is our technology industry, which is going through an amazing time right now, a magical time. It's a time unlike any that we've ever had in our industry. The amount of innovation, new companies, new ideas that's blossoming is phenomenal, completely amazing. And you see it in really only one city in the world, right here in San Francisco, where we now have thousands of new companies that have emerged and have decided to make their home, and most of them funded by Ron Conway right here. So thank you, Ron. Now, we would be using this time in San Francisco, I think, in an inappropriate way if we didn't think about, in this magical time, in this incredible time, how do we give back? We're creating all this wealth, we're creating all these new resources, we're creating all this new capability, And we are very fortunate that 14 years ago when we started Salesforce, we also created, the same day that we started the company, Salesforce Foundation. Suzanne has been the founder of that. We put 1% of our equity, 1% of our profit, 1% of all of our employees' time into the foundation so that as we grew, we'd be able to give back. This is not our first contribution to the school district, and this is not our last contribution to the school district. We are here for the long haul. And what I really ask is that all of our technology peers, and I'm so glad that Zynga's here and Autodesk, but for all those thousands of technology companies who have the ability to give back, not just with money, that's important, very important, especially for these principals who need empowerment, and they know where the money should go, so my point is give them the money, the technology, which is certainly important, but it's not the be-all, end-all, we all know that. I've been putting computers in the San Francisco Public Schools since 1998 rather, and I can tell you that it's not the be-all, end-all, and people. You know, we have thousands of employees here in San Francisco who work for Salesforce, and they get 4 hours a month paid off for volunteerism. We want them to come and do that work here in the schools. We have to remember that this is about one thing. This is about our children, the most important resource in San Francisco. And when we think about our children, we need to remember that our children need a great education, which is why we're making this important investment today. We have to remember our children need great health, which is why we're building our new UCSF Benioff Children's Hospital as well. And we also need to make sure our children are off the streets and have great homes. That's a super important part of what's going on in San Francisco today. And those are the three things that we're very focused on, health, education, and shelter for all of our kids. I want to thank you for giving us this opportunity for participating. Thank you to our mayor, who's phenomenal. Thank you to our superintendent for your great leadership. I want to thank each and every one of you for all the resources that you've brought to this room, our philanthropic partners, our commercial partners, the school district, everyone here contributing to create a better San Francisco. This is really a great day. Thank you very much. And let me introduce our wonderful principal as well.
So thank you everyone for being here. You know, we have the great bonus of being Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Academic Middle School. And what everyone thinks about when they think of Dr. King is his dream. And what's so amazing is the way that we can change what he thought of his dream 50 years ago at the March in Washington as to what our dream for the students is now. And the underlying base is the same. We want equity. We want all of our children to have quality education, quality jobs. So, you know, Salesforce, you could also do a Salesforce promise, just putting it out there for our kids to have jobs. Just putting it out there. But that's something that we need to think about, is especially on this side of the city, too many of our students don't think about what kinds of careers are in technology for them and how they could, with a college degree and without, with technical degrees, and all the different ways that they can educate themselves to be a part of their future. So one thing that's really great is when the kids see the students in the Salesforce Foundation t-shirts, they can start to see themselves that, hey, maybe I could have a job at Salesforce, or I could work for the mayor, or I could be superintendent. Not too many of them want to be the principal, but we're working on that. And so what we would like to invite you to do is to do what you came here to do, which is to see the kids and to see some of this technology in use. So we're going to ask Bajay and Hydra to kind of help. We have 3 groups that we're going to ask you to come and join some classrooms. Obviously, as you can tell, we don't have room for all of you in those 3 classrooms at once. But if you want to come after the first group goes through, you're welcome to stay, and we'll take you around for the second showing of the classrooms. And I just want to again say thank you so much for being here, my comrades who I'm speaking for, not to, hopefully. And all of our students, Brandon, Fiona, thank you very much for being our reporters. Oh, I said the wrong name, I'm sorry. So thank you so much for being here. And I think that wraps it up for us to go to the groups if I have the agenda correct. So thank you so much for coming to MLK.